Hello, everyone. A while back, I did a recording regarding the police and military. My goal with the recording was to show you how you can use real life examples as a compass for creating video game stories. I want to continue that by talking about the training involved with law enforcement. Along the way, I'm hoping I can teach you some things that you can apply to real life as well. Let's go ahead and start with the stuff that applies to civilians and law enforcement. When I went through martial art training way back in the day to prepare me for future careers and things like that, they sat me down in a classroom before they taught me techniques. They felt it was necessary to do that so that I could learn statistics, um, get explanations to certain things, or possibly something else that could help me. Out of all the statistics that I was shown, I would say the most important one is the knife fights. According to the statistics back then, a trained martial artist only has a 5% chance to survive a knife fight. That is not good odds. For that reason, you want to use either tools or techniques to deal with someone who has a knife. If you want to read about it, there are videos and sometimes blogs from well known martial artists who will explain why they do not like dealing with knives. There's a very good reason for it. So yeah, whenever I see a tweet saying that guns should be banned or this other crap, I'm just sitting there like, man, you all are uneducated. It's so easy to see. But that's a matter for another day. So how do you deal with a dangerous situation such as that? There are various tools out there or techniques that you can use. So let's go ahead and cover the tool side of it. Of course, this all depends on your state because there are states like I think New York it is that strictly prohibits or outright bans the use of things like mace or pepper spray. I never understood it, but anyways, mace or pepper spray is perhaps the most versatile tool that you can have. The problem with tasers is that they have barbs that need to connect to the person in order for them to function. Thick clothing can defeat the barbs, jackets, for example. Mace or pepper spray does not require that. As long as you point it at somebody's face, you can guarantee someone is going to suffer, assuming that the stream makes contact. Even if you're wearing tactical glasses, there's a good chance that even 3 or 4 droplets will drip down into your eye. That's misery right there. Straight misery. If you ask law enforcement officers today how painful mace is, they will give you a very good description of how painful it is because they've been through it. What a lot of academies will do is they will purposely spray a cadet and expect them to fight in a ring. It's to teach them how to survive should either a civilian or their mace happens to blast them. You have to be able to fight even if you're maced, because if you give up right then and there, you could die. That's how powerful mace is, people. It's something that the police train for to deal with. Yeah. So, let's just say that a person is too close to you and you're concerned about blasting yourself with your own mace. If it's not a knife, then you can use a stun gun. I mean, I guess you could use it, but it's just too risky. If you see an opportunity for it, I guess you can use a stun gun, but I would consider the stun gun more of a tool for other scenarios like 2x4s or bats and things like that. The great thing about stun guns, like the one I had up on the screen, is that they only require contact, which is not hard to do in most cases. You can see that the stun gun arc is right here at the very end of this particular flashlight. So yeah, as long as you can just shove that into somebody, it's going to get them most of the time. Another thing too that's great about stun guns like this one is because you can use it as a blocking device. If somebody's coming at you with a 2x4 or bat, you can use this flashlight to try and deflect or block the incoming strike and hope for an opportunity to nail them. Taser isn't the only one that makes stuff like this. There are other flashlights with a built-in stun gun that come with a brighter flashlight so you can blind a person. That's actually another tool you can use, assuming it's not part of the stun gun. There are flashlights that are super bright and can blind a person temporarily. Those flashlights are actually another good way to defuse a situation or prevent yourself from getting harmed. Those bright flashlights can actually be used in combination with, say, mace, for example. You can blind them just long enough to, get your mace out, assuming it isn't already out by this point, and blast them in the face with it. Yeah, that would be a very painful scenario for anyone. That's the general idea of the tools and like what to think of when getting said tools. I would like to finish it off with the cost. A lot of people say $130 is a lot of money, and that's true. $130 is actually a lot to some people, but you have to think of it as life insurance. If you are in a scenario where the only way to survive is something like this, then that's $130 well spent. Money can be replaced, but you can't. Keep that in mind. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the martial arts side now. Perhaps the most common training in the world for law enforcement is the spear system. I personally don't agree with it, as it does teach you to do things that I'm not comfortable with, but to each their own. I'll let you all Google the spear system so that I can use the time for other things, but the short version is that spear, from what I can tell, is all about domination, which I don't feel is a great way of approaching the situation. Because as I was pointing out with the 5%, you want to play it safe. And of course, there's other scenarios where you really don't want close contact if you can help it. But yeah, I'll let you read that. Let's go ahead and talk about some very custom training. There are martial art instructors out there in the world who are licensed to teach law enforcement self-defense training. A lot of them are actually accepted by the law enforcement licensing boards of the various states. Perhaps the best one that I've seen so far out of the very quirky combinations is one that I actually went through. It uses Jeet Kune Do as the main one, but it's supported by other martial arts. It's supported by Krav Maga, Kali, which is also Arnis, and Muay Thai. It may seem like an odd combination, but they all have their purposes. So let's go over that. The point of Arnis, or Kali, being in there is to teach you weapon training. So using a knife or a stick, in some cases a nightstick, maybe a baseball bat. That's what Arnis teaches you. In relation to the weapons training, it will also teach you techniques like Defanging the Snake. Defanging the Snake is when you use either a nightstick, a knife, or something to attack the person's hand that is holding their weapon. You can watch videos on it if you want to. I would recommend looking at Paul Vunak. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are more than qualified to talk about defanging the snake and showing you what it is. But the only person that I recognize when it comes to this topic is Paul Vunak. He is perhaps the most well known when it comes to using this technique along with others. The private training that I went through for learning law enforcement self-defense techniques happens to be one supported by Paul Vunak. He has some students that do their own version of his training, and they mold their classes in such a way that it works for law enforcement. But he is the start of it. A lot of his training is passed down to these students, and then they teach other people that, which is what I went through. So that's why I recognize Paul Vunak as being the most reputable source of learning this stuff. But moving on. Krav Maga, it's in there to teach you some strikes, but the main focus is for the control aspect. One of the many techniques that I learned over the course of this private training was a thing called the 12 arm lock series. The 12 arm lock series is, as far as I can tell, unique to Paul Vunak's students. They're the only ones that, as far as I can tell, teach it. The 12 arm lock series is a series of either wrist grabs, arm locks, or even pressure point control techniques to hopefully stop somebody from fighting you without resorting to striking or violence. Nerve control is an extremely effective method, pressure point control. But yeah, if you can put pressure on somebody's nerve, it's not going to be a fun day for them. So Krav Maga is in there for that reason, and also to, even though it's not a primary reason for having it under here, it's one of those it just happens to fall in place type of things. Krav Maga does teach some knife techniques, so that does combine with the training that you receive from Cali Arnis, which then can be translated into Defanging the Snake. But as far as Muay Thai is concerned, the main focus with Muay Thai is just for striking when it comes to that time, because you can't rely on controlling somebody all the time. If you've exhausted all of your options, then you're just going to have to start striking. And so Muay Thai is there for that reason. I'm not sure if it's unique to Muay Thai or Jeet Kune Do, and somebody who knows martial arts far better than I can probably say so in the comments, but I was taught a thing called G-Tech Kick, in which that get up on your back leg and, your leg that's not the lead leg, and you raise your other leg up and strike the person in the knee in an attempt to get them to back off. Another strike that I'm not sure is either Jeet Kune Do or Muay Thai was the palm heel strike. That's another one of the strikes that I learned with that, because the thing that I was taught in this private course was if you absolutely have to do something like that to end a fight, then do it. If you see an opportunity, go for it. But within reason, of course, because of the rules and laws and things like that. But that's the martial arts in a nutshell. Now let's talk about the Monadnock Chart, as this relates to the weapon training I just went over. So the Monadnock Chart just shows you where to not strike somebody with either a baseball bat, a nightstick, or really blunt objects like that. Anything in the green area is perfectly fine. Yellow and red should only ever be used as a last-ditch scenario, as there's a good chance you could kill somebody doing that. This is just a general overview, though. Let me go and show an example of the peroneal nerve. So you'll notice that the peroneal nerve is kind of by the knee, and scrolling back, we can see that the knee is a yellow area. So what you can do with a nightstick or baseball bat is strike somebody in the peroneal nerve in an attempt to get them to the ground. If you strike somebody hard enough and precisely enough, there's a very high chance that they will just collapse to the ground from the sheer force of the weapon being used, and also from the fact that you are hitting a nerve with the weapon. That's kind of one of these exceptions to the rule, and or like something to think about, because even though it is in a yellow area, it's not hitting the bone directly. It's going off to the side and hitting a nerve, which in itself may not cause permanent injuries. Um, it's always hard to tell, but at least it has a very low chance in comparison to other things that I could list you could do. But yeah, so that's a Monadnock chart. Now let's cover the use of force continuum or force escalation chart. It has many different names, but the one here at NIJ is a more broad overview of it, and you can read this for yourself. I'll put it in the description. But it's more of a broad overview of how a situation is handled, such as officer presence, letting you know when soft technique or hard techniques are acceptable and things like that. It's a very straightforward method, but police departments across the United States have their own version of it. I forget if this was LAPD or not, but I'm pretty sure it is. You can see that they did their own version here, and I'll link it. This is Chicago Police Department. You can see they have a completely different graphic setup for it. But yeah, so this will all tell you what that police department considers acceptable escalation of force, and how a suspect or person can trigger that force escalation. But yeah, I'll let you read that for yourself. But for now, that's all I have. If there's ever a question you have or want me to cover something else, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for listening.